Have you ever felt it? That strange shift in energy. Someone smiles at you, compliments you, laughs at your jokes. But behind it, something cold, something calculated. They never raise their voice. They never start a fight. But somehow you always end up doubting yourself when they're around. Slipping, second-guessing, losing ground. What if your biggest threat isn't loud, but close? Not reckless, but patient, not aggressive, but silent. Today, we're not talking about the obvious enemies. We're talking about the ones who move quietly, who infiltrate, study, wait, and strike when your guard is down. This isn't fear-mongering. It's preparation. In this video, we'll break down 5 signs that reveal when someone in your life isn't just difficult but strategically destructive. Because the most dangerous people don't attack your walls. They study your doors and wait until you open one. Let's begin. Before we go further, let's make something clear. This isn't about paranoia. It's not about being suspicious of everyone around you. This is about awareness, about building a lens strong enough to see the signs without letting fear cloud your judgment. Because when someone's trying to chip away at you, it's rarely obvious at first. They don't shout. They don't swing. They study. They position themselves. They wear trust like a mask. And that's why you need to sharpen your ability to read beneath the surface, not to live in fear, but to live in control. That's where Stoicism comes in. Stoic philosophy isn't about being emotionless. It's about mastering your emotional responses. It's like installing an operating system for your mind, one that keeps you grounded when others try to throw you off balance. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they weren't teaching how to escape life's challenges. They were teaching how to become undefeated by them. And when it comes to identifying quiet enemies, you need that same internal strength. Because here's the truth, you don't control what they do, but you always control what you let in. This video is about learning to see clearly so that even when someone moves in silence, you don't move at all. They don't argue. They don't attack. They don't even speak up. Instead, they observe. From the outside, they look harmless, quiet, maybe even supportive. But behind that stillness is a pattern, one designed to position themselves closer and closer to your world without ever being invited. I call them the silent watcher. This isn't someone who just follows you on social media. This is someone who pieces together your life with intentional precision. A friend tags you in a cafe, they note the time. A colleague hears you talk about your gym, they file it away. You mention your weekend plans in passing, they remember more than you think. And one day, they start to appear at your gym, at your cafe, at your usual grocery store, by coincidence. But how many coincidences does it take before you realize you're being mapped? You may think, that's just life. People cross paths. True, but it's the consistency that matters. The perfectly timed appearances. The fact that they always seem to know just enough to feel familiar, but not enough to justify it. And in the digital age, they don't need to hack you. They just need to be attentive. Because your online world often reveals more than you realize. A check-in post here, a tagged story there, a mutual friend sharing something casual, and suddenly your routines become predictable patterns. They don't ask you for access. They take it from what's already out there. And over time, they position themselves in your life without your permission, but with your data. That's what makes them dangerous. They don't break in. They blend in. And because they never cross an obvious line, you hesitate to call it out. You tell yourself, I'm just overthinking this. Maybe I'm being paranoid. But here's the truth. Your intuition isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition. This is where Stoicism saves you from spiraling. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your thoughts are clouded by fear, you become reactive, defensive, off-center. But if your thoughts are clear, anchored in awareness, not panic, you move with power. Stoicism teaches, you don't need to fear being watched. You need to be aware that you're observable, and then make yourself hard to predict. Change your routines. Break your patterns. Be less traceable both digitally and emotionally. Because the silent watcher doesn't want conflict. They want access without resistance. They want familiarity without effort. So deny them the one thing they need most: predictability. Stay calm. Stay sharp. And if something feels off, don't ignore it. Because when someone is quietly tracking your life, you don't owe them confrontation. You owe yourself clarity. Not all attacks are loud. Some don't come with insults or confrontation. They come quietly in pieces. A look, a pause, a compliment with a hidden edge, a room that suddenly feels colder when you enter. This is the signature of the Erosion Operator. They don't fight you. They nudge you, just enough to throw you off balance, and let gravity finish the job. Their strategy isn't destruction, it's deterioration. In meetings, they downplay your input with phrases like, "I think what she meant was, that's an interesting point. Let's move on." They smile. They're polite. And yet you begin to feel invisible. You start questioning yourself, did I do something wrong? Why do I feel excluded? And that's exactly what they want. To make you doubt your place. To make others quietly question you without any obvious offense. This is passive sabotage. A form of quiet undermining that doesn't break your reputation with a sledgehammer. It dissolves it, drip by drip. At work, this looks like credit being rerouted, praise being faint, mistakes being magnified subtly, just enough to damage trust. But here's what makes the Erosion Operator especially dangerous. They rarely act alone. They create distance between you and others by seeding minor doubts, twisting harmless remarks, making you look off without ever directly accusing you. It's office politics, but psychological, calculated, almost invisible. And you might not realize it until it's already too late, until you're no longer invited to the conversation, until the energy shifts in the room and no one tells you why. Here's where Stoicism gives you clarity. You can't always protect your reputation, but you can always protect your character. As Marcus Aurelius said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. In other words, don't overvalue the rumors. Don't overreact to the whispers. And most of all, don't chase your reputation. Pursue honor, not image. Focus on the one thing they cannot touch: your discipline, your work ethic, your consistency, your integrity. Because while gossip is fast, truth is patient, and it always outlasts performance. If you spend all your energy trying to correct what people say about you, you'll burn out chasing shadows. But if you live in a way that refutes the lie, you make the lie look foolish over time. The Stoic response: don't explain, don't defend, just demonstrate. Because when someone tries to weaken you through doubt, your best answer is a calm refusal to crumble. Let them operate in the shadows. You stay in the light, clear, calm, and impossible to distort. Some friendships feel effortless. They happen fast, too fast. You meet someone, and within days, they seem to know everything about you. Your routines, your worries, your past, even the things you rarely share. They text constantly. They ask deep questions. They're always available. They say things like, "I feel like we've known each other forever." And at first, it feels magical, the kind of connection you didn't know you needed. But pause and ask yourself, why do they want to know everything so quickly? Why are they moving at emotional speed of light? This is the fast-tracked friend, and it's one of the most overlooked manipulative strategies in modern relationships, because when someone gains access to your emotional core too quickly, they don't just become a friend, they become a mirror of your vulnerability. And that mirror can be turned against you. We live in a world where data is currency, and in personal relationships, the data is psychological. What makes you anxious? Who do you trust? What do you fear losing? What part of yourself are you still trying to prove? The fast-tracked friend collects these things, not out of intimacy, but out of intent. It's psychological data mining, fast emotional bonding, forced vulnerability, exaggerated connection, all to gain influence. It's not always malicious at first. But when someone fast-tracks trust, they skip the most important filter of all, time, because real trust takes repetition. It takes watching how someone behaves when they don't need something from you. But a manipulator, they want the shortcut, because the faster you feel safe, the sooner they can shape the narrative. And when the mask slips, because it always does, you're already entangled. They've met your family. They know your weak spots. They've seen you without armor. And now, they can use that closeness as leverage. Here's where Stoicism protects your soul. Seneca warned, a friend should be tried before being trusted. In Stoic terms, trust that comes too fast is rarely safe. It's not earned. It's granted under illusion. So what do? You slow the process down. You don't close the door, but you don't give away the keys either. Let trust build through observing patterns, not promises. Watching for consistency over compliments. Seeing how someone behaves when you say no. And most importantly, you protect your inner world. Not everyone deserves access to your plans, your insecurities, your ravished moments. Because in the wrong hands, those things don't build intimacy, they build control. So if someone shows up too fast, too intense, too perfect, don't get swept away. Ask, do they want connection or do they want control, disguised as closeness? And remember, being guarded doesn't make you cold. It makes you conscious. Let time reveal what words try to promise too quickly, because the people who want your trust for real will never rush to take it, they'll work to earn it. It never starts with a threat. It starts with a joke. One that stings just enough to catch your attention, but soft enough for them to say, "Relax. I was only kidding." Then it becomes a touch, a bump in the hallway that feels a little too intentional, a joke that lingers too long, a stare that doesn't quite match the moment. Then it escalates. Now, it's comments about your competence, your appearance, your worth, maybe even veiled threats. "I wouldn't push me if I were you. You don't want to find out how I handle betrayal." At every step, it's coated in deniability. "I didn't mean it like that." You're reading too much into it. And you start to question yourself. Am I overreacting? Is it really that serious? But this isn't random. It's a pattern, a stress test. They're escalating to see how far they can go. Every joke, every accident, every brush of disrespect, it's all a probe, a test of your boundaries, a check on your silence. Because here's what they're watching for: your response. If you laugh it off, they go further. If you flinch and say nothing, they get bolder. If you freeze, they interpret it as permission. And before you know it, the line is so far behind you, you can't remember where it was. This is how manipulators operate, not with big moves, but with inches. Inch by inch, they take ground. You never thought you'd give up. This is where Stoicism gives you back your footing. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, what you resist early doesn't get the chance to grow. Stoic strength isn't silent compliance. It's calm confrontation. You don't need to scream. You don't need to attack, but you do need to act early. Interrupt the joke. Address the tension. Say that's not okay. The first time, not the fifth. The people who escalate don't want confrontation. They want submission. They count on you not standing firm. So when you do, when you hold that boundary with zero drama but full conviction, they feel it. And most of the time, they back off. Not because they respect you, but because they realize they can't manipulate you. And that's the Stoic goal. Don't become reactive. Become immovable. Because when you refuse to move in the face of subtle disrespect, you send a message that doesn't need to be repeated. You don't get to decide what I tolerate. I do. So if someone is testing you joke by joke, inch by inch, don't wait until it becomes obvious. The pattern is already speaking. You just need to answer. Not all threats are aggressive. Not all enemies reveal themselves. Some of the most dangerous people you'll ever meet will smile first. They'll listen, support you, cheer you on, and wait. They are the patient threat. They don't rush. They don't explode. They observe. They gather. They embed themselves into your world, not through force, but through familiarity. They learn your schedule, your language, your insecurities. They position themselves as your safe space. They collect your trust in pieces until they hold the full blueprint of who you are. And then they wait. Not to sabotage you immediately, but to strike when you're least prepared. When you're vulnerable, tired, exposed, distracted, And by the time they act, it's not an attack. It's a collapse from the inside out, because they've already positioned themselves close enough to pull the thread that unravels the whole structure. And that's the danger. It doesn't come from the stranger. It comes from the person you once called friend. These people don't raise suspicion. They lower your guard. That's their strategy. That's their power. They don't need to fight you when you're strong. They simply wait until you're unaware. And that's when they move. Here's the Stoic insight that can save you. Be kind, but be guarded. Epictetus warned, be careful to whom you give your trust. For once shared, your inner world cannot be taken back. And that's the mistake most people make. They confuse warmth with worthiness. They overshare before observing. They let someone close just because they seem safe. But real safety isn't built in days. It's revealed over time. In actions, in consistency, in how someone treats you when they have nothing to gain. So how do you protect yourself? You don't become cold. You become disciplined with your access. Don't reveal everything just because someone's listening. Don't confuse availability with loyalty. Don't share secrets as a shortcut to intimacy. Because when you give away your internal world too quickly, you give someone the exact tools they need to dismantle you later. And if they're playing the long game, you'll never see it coming. That's why Stoicism doesn't tell you to fear people. It tells you to study patterns, to let time do what charm cannot reveal, intent. If someone's suddenly invested in every detail of your life, pause. If they're moving too fast toward closeness, pause. Not because they're definitely a threat, but because true trust doesn't fear time. Only manipulation does. So move slowly, watch quietly, and guard your peace like something sacred, because once it's handed to the wrong person, you may not realize the damage until it's already done. Not everyone who's quiet is a threat. Some are simply private, introverted, gentle. But the most dangerous people you'll ever encounter, they're almost always the quiet ones. They don't shout. They don't rage. They study. They calculate. They position themselves so close that by the time you feel the knife, they're already holding the handle. And that's why awareness matters. Not paranoia. Not fear. Awareness. Because when you live wide awake, when your eyes are open and your instincts are honored, you don't need to fear every shadow. But you do need to learn the difference between shade and threat. That's what Stoicism gives you. Not hypervigilance, not suspicion, but discernment. The ability to stay calm while reading the room clearly, the ability to hold kindness without handing away trust carelessly. Because once you realize that danger doesn't always come with fangs, sometimes it comes with a smile. You stop judging people by their volume and start judging them by their pattern. The truth is, you don't need to be scared. You just need to be steady. Steady enough to notice. Strong enough to act. Still enough to not get pulled off course by noise or charm. You don't need to build walls. You just need to install filters. So the next time someone leans in too fast, asks too much, or moves just a little too close, don't panic. But don't sleep on it either. Observe. Reflect. Adjust. Because in a world where threats whisper, the clearest mind becomes the safest shield. Now I want to hear from you. What was a moment you realized someone wasn't what they seemed, and how did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments. Let this be more than just a video. Let it be a place where people wake up, reflect, and protect their peace. Your voice matters, and chances are, what you've lived through might help someone else recognize their own silent threat. If this video gave you clarity, subscribe now. This channel is here to sharpen your instincts, build your resilience, and give you the inner tools to stay 5 steps ahead. And when you're ready for the next move, watch this next: how to recognize quiet manipulators before they break you. Because the people we've talked about today, they rarely work alone. And the more patterns you recognize, the harder it is for anyone to play you. Stay clear, stay grounded, and most of all, stay untouchable.